Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie and I'm going to be doing a Your Votes Count session today. So Tracy's going to be in the room and she's going to be controlling the poll, although hopefully she should look like it's me doing it. So the first poll is going to be about colour. So while that is going to be going on, I'm going to be talking a little bit about delivery, so you may have spotted just sneaking into the picture that the delivery has arrived. And hi Mum! So don't be afraid to say hi and let us know that you're watching. And as soon as we get a few people in the room, I'm sure Tracy will start the poll live. Hi Deb! I bet Badger and Rabbit have got nice and muddy today. Hi Linda! So you'll have seen last night we had a little bit of fun with delivery times because, you know, this week has just been filled with interruptions. Now, I'm going to say, touch wood, it's here. So hopefully, IT allowing, and anybody else, you know, that wants a phone call and everything else, we should be okay. Yes, Tracy, if you could put up the first poll. If yours is on pre-order with Art from the Heart, you should be getting it shortly because that's where we had mine from. So Ian was very naughty and snuck the pre-order without telling me because I said I wasn't going to do it this time round. So I've definitely now overfilled my distress storage, so I'm going to have to look at trying to find something that will go with it, or at least be able to hold them. So while Tracy's popping up the first poll, so the options are brights, lights or dark. And hi Mare, that's okay. If you want your name to pop up on the chat, you need to go to chat.restream.io/FB, and I'm sure Deb will put up a link for you. So your choices are lights, brights or darks for the ink. I have, off to one side, a range of card blanks. So we'll see where we go with the colours, and that might kind of inspire where we're going. And I do have some mixed media, so if we get really messy, it won't hurt too much. Might change my map though. So, Salvage Patina. No, I can't see your name. The only people that I can see are those that have been to the link and created a login. And today I can't even see the big Restream chat, so I'm having to make my preview window as big as possible so I can see what everybody's saying. So yeah, if you're watching in Facebook, you'll see everybody's name as normal. But you'll notice when it comes up on the video, it'll just say Facebook user, and that's the stream that I'm watching. So I can see that your comments in almost real time, while you'll have a delay seeing it back to you, if that makes sense. So we have our Distress Oxide and our Distress Ink. Now I'm going to be good and I'm going to open these straight away because usually I'm a little bit naughty. And I don't always open them straight away, so just grab a knife. There we go. So you can see the colour. It's nice and bright, this one. So if I grab my speckled egg, you can compare. So broken glass. Egg. So when we're working with the inks, you can't see them as well on the pad, but the oxides you can definitely see the difference. So those are probably the closest. So in the middle we've got the Salvage Patina. Then we've got our Speckled Egg, which was the first of the new colours, and you can see that is quite a bit greyer than our Salvage Patina, so you can really see the difference when you've got them side by side like that. Yep, I can see you now. So, yep, Sharon, you should be coming up on the video shortly. And Tumbled Glass is probably your next kind of pale blue. So you can really see where it starts to sit in the colour scheme. If I move those along a bit, just so you get a bit of better lighting. And there we go. Getting a bit of a shadow today. Okay. So it's always a good idea when I do things like this, if you want to just take a quick snapshot, and then you'll know what inks you want to purchase. Now, what I would say with your oxides is that when you buy them, try to also buy the re-inkers at the same time. So in the kit I also have the re-inker, and you'll find that you end up re-inking your oxides much quicker and more often than you ever will your distress inks. So a lot of my distress inks are still on their original ink, even though most of them are, let's just say, a little longer in the tooth. Some of them are well into their double figures. Morning, Delcy. Okay, so distress ink. We'll open that one next. So how's the poll going, Tracy? Are you seeing people voting? So you're currently voting on the colour that I'm going to create my card design with. So you've got lights, which are like your pastels, your brights, which are your really bold colours, and your darks, which are going to be obviously quite dark, intense and moody. So our distress ink, because this one's a paler colour, you can see it a little bit more on the pad than something like your aged mahogany or something like that. We then have the Embossing Glaze. Now, I did a sample the other day with the Kitsch Flamingo Embossing Glaze, and it's such a gorgeous powder to work with. I can't see you yet, May. You're still coming up as Facebook user. We have 7 votes so far. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, unfortunately you won't be able to join in the vote. You can always pop in a comment, and I'm sure Tracy will tally those up. So with your distress embossing glazes, they are not like a normal embossing powder. So normally we'll, use your embossing ink and you put your powder over the top and heat it, and it doesn't matter what colour you've put underneath, unless you're using clear embossing powder, it'll be opaque over the top. Now, distress embossing glazes are translucent, which means that it can see all the layers of ink that you've put underneath. So it's really good when you want to build up things like if you're doing jelly prints, for instance, you could use your glazes on those. You could do like layered stamping. So let's say you're doing a tree. You could do some leaves that aren't embossed and others that are, and that embossing is going to show through to underneath. Yep, we can see that you're commenting and polling on Facebook. Tracy is running the poll for me, so she's keeping track of all your comments. It's just that I can't see who's commenting. It's just my computer was getting a bit mad trying to run Facebook at the same time, so I had to close Facebook. Okay. So, next product, we have the Distress Paint. So Distress Paint is good if you want to do things like marbling techniques or anything where you don't want mud, because they will actually stay separate. So if you're using other paints, so I have the Kitsch Flamingo in this one too, they'll actually not create mud in the middle. You'll get a nice separation between the two paints. So that's really useful when you're doing things like your jelly printing, or even if you just want to use some acetate to print with as well, they'll stay separate rather than muddy. Next we have two sprays. So you have the Oxide Spray and the Stain Spray. So the Oxide gives a very chalky finish and really vibrant, whereas your Stain Spray is going to be translucent over the layers underneath. So it's going to tint them and also darken them slightly. Yeah, that's yeah, that's the voting. And we have the re-inker for the Distress ink pad. So with your re-inker for your Distress inks, as I was saying earlier, your actual ink pad itself really lasts for a long time without being refilled. But you can use your re-inker instead to actually watercolour with, so you can put a little bit onto your messy mat or onto your glass mat and then pick it up with a water brush and go from there. You can also use it with your blending tool, so if you want to get a really intense colour with your blending brush, then that's the way you would do it. Thank you, Deb. And finally we have the pin. So if you're into collecting pins, which I am, you can also get your distress pins. Now you have to be quick with some of the original colours because they're not staying out for any longer than their first run, so you'll have to see if you can grab those where you can, if you're into that kind of thing like me. If not, you may think it's a bit of a fad. And you can always sell them if you do get the full kit. So the kit I got was the full collection from Art from the Heart. So how are we doing with the poll? I think at this point we're ready to get started, so feel free to tell me what I'm doing, Tracy. I am indeed ready for results. Bright. Well, should I go bright with patina then? Because it is quite bright. So let's go for, we'll start off with our newbie. And I will keep some Tumbled Glass there. And let's go Blueprint Sketch. Go really vivid. %, say bright. Yay! Okay, so do you want to start the next poll then, Tracy? So the next poll is background. Whether you would like me to stamp a background so that we work on creating background textures, or a stencil background, so have some pretty stencils to play with, or explosion powders, which might be interesting with the colour scheme of bright now. So you may be better off going for something else. Oh, saying that, I've got some pigment powders I could use. Okay, so as I'm waiting, let's show you a little bit. So I have a few stencils we can try out. One with words, but you can still use that as a background. So when you're looking at your supplies, don't necessarily just think of an element in isolation. Actually look at it as a whole and go, could I use that another way? We have some flower stencils, or at least what I would call flower stencils. That one's a bit more of a mandala. We have Pretty Acoustic, yay! Pretty Acoustic has become a bit of a running joke on the channel because I like it so much. Okay, so Pretty Barbed, which is really good for doing underwater scenes, I think, because you can actually do things that look a little bit, well, I'll get me to the words out. Try that again. A little bit like coral. Got there eventually. Okay. Also have a couple of the newbies as well. So I have the flower with the flowers around the outside. So this one's quite a funky one to use because not only can you just use it as is. Let's see if I can help you see that a little bit better. Black better, there we go. So not only can you use it as it is, you can also use the straighter edges to actually build a border around the outside of your card, which is something I did with one of the samples that I showed earlier in the week. And you've also got, I think it looks like a hydrangea. So yeah, that one tends to get lots of different purples. Can use the stencils and stamps as well. I can. Shall I just crack on with that then? Tracy's boss today, you see. She can see all behind the scenes and tell me what to do. Okay. If I'm going to go and do a bit of both. I'm going to start off with Pretty Acoustic because, well, it's me. It's also quite subtle. So you can use this in a really bold way and do the whole thing. Now, I mean, can you use those stencils as a stamp instead? Ooh. You could ink it up, then take an impression off it. Now, let's see how we can... let's get me messy mat, because this is going to get messy. So, given that we know that our Tumbled Glass is kind of the palest, I'm going to start off with that one. I'm going to try and fill the gap with my new pad. Try not to contaminate it too much, but it should be alright. Now, next week I'm going to show you a little bit of jelly printing. And that's another way that you could do this technique so that we ink up our stencil a bit more evenly. Yes, please, Tracy. Okay. I'm going to mist that quite lightly with some water. So I'm just going to hold it away and just let it mist like so. Always interesting to do when there's an iPad on your desk. Okay. Now, because that's wet, I'm going to move it out of the way. I'm going to bring in a dry one, because we don't want to get our card soggy. And I'm going to place that way. I'm going to give it a good squidge. Now, looking that I could have done with a little bit more water, but we'll see how we go. And we'll give it a spray. Now what I will do, because I'm not certain that it's transferred as much as I want, if we grab a little masking tape, I do only mean a little, I'm going to de-tack it because I don't want it to tear my paper. I'm going to just create a little hinge because I want to have the ability to add a bit more if I need to. See, look, it hasn't quite picked that up enough. So a little bit more. I will put a little bit more of that patina on there too. And all the blue. And I can slide my somewhat damp messy mat underneath. Let's get the water. Try and avoid doing your card blank too much, otherwise you'll find it starts to cockle a little bit. Now, I'm going to take that up and over. Move that one out of the way. There we go. So this is only like the first layer anyway, so I don't want it to be too perfect. And morning on Twitch. Yeah, Ian spends most of his day laughing. I'm not entirely convinced he does any work, you know. No, he does seem to really enjoy it, so I'm really chuffed that he's got it, to be honest, because he wasn't happy with what he was doing before. So okay, so there's a little bit of a texture going on, and I'm going to set that stencil to one side in case you want to bring that into any other elements. Hi Louise. So how did the poll go then, Tracy? Because it's dropped off the bottom. Am I stamping or am I doing more stenciling? Just let me know. I will keep the messy mat there because it can be quite handy to work on. So as I said before, you can always use your refills onto your messy mat, and if you have a glass mat, that's the same thing too. I'm just going to give my messy mat a quick wipe just because I noticed there was a couple of little drops of water and I don't want those to get onto the back of my card. Even though it's clean water, it still cockles it a little bit. So you can see we've got a little bit of cockling on the card. That's okay, we can work with it. So at the moment the card is upside down, so it's going to go round that way. Let's move these out of the way. Stamp a pattern. Okay, we can do that. Let's go for take it there's no preference for stamps here. Ooh, let's go for this one because there's quite a bit we can do with these. So this is from the Indian Summer collection, and because I'm going to do a pattern rather than trying to use my stamp platform, and because we're going to go a bit more grungy, I'm just going to use my little stamp block. So what I'm thinking is, as we've done this kind of texture in the background, it'd be really nice to kind of emphasize that, so that we actually bring some of these elements out of these dots, like so. So with our distress oxides, we can actually stamp with them. So let's try our patterner stamped. They'll always look different stamped to when they're rubbed on direct paper, and different again when they're watercoloured with. So it's always a good idea to do yourself a little swatch book. So if you go back through the videos, I showed you the journal that I'm working on with the colour blends. So this is going to be getting a section to it shortly. So I'm going to follow those dots, try and keep it vertical, but you know, it doesn't matter if you go wrong. No such thing as wrong. So I'm just tapping lightly. Now just be aware that if you do ink up, you can catch the corner. Just before you stamp it, just give it a quick wipe, just so that that doesn't transfer. And I'm going to go down here. And one here. So you see, I'm not even keeping these at a regular height. Then in a minute I'm going to come back in, I'm going to fill the gaps. Is it warming up over here? There was a picture put up reasonably locally to me this morning where it looked like a snowstorm, to be honest. But right here, right now, it's quite warm. But it tends to be quite warm because of the studio lights anyway. Because even if they don't give out heat, you kind of feel you're somewhere really, really sunny. Because it's bright. bright, bright. Okay, line that one up there. So you'll notice I'm not worrying about where I'm folding at the moment. I'm just literally going straight to the paper and just letting that kind of influence the card design itself. So I'm going to go there. So we've got 3 in our patterner. So now let's swap to our blueprint sketch. Next pole, next pole, next pole. Yes, go for it. Go for it. So the stamps I'm working with at the moment are Indian Summer. So when the poll goes up in a minute, that means that you'll be voting for more of the same. Okay, so I'm looking at this, working out where I could place this one, and it's going to fill in the gap. It's going to go there. And let's put one down here just to finish off that edge, and another one just there with those dots. So you can see each time I'm trying to line it up where the dots are in the background. And you might decide that with that middle section you want to put banner over the top or something, and that's up to you. Why on earth he sat with the back door open? Sheesh. Let's go somewhere in there next. So let's go there. So there's the start of our background, and at this point you might bring the original stencil back in and actually do the blending through to get the dots to actually come through as a positive down here and up at the top. So Tracy's just doing a last call for votes. So if you're on YouTube, you can just pop a vote in your comments. And I'm just going to grab this and a little blending brush. Now I do keep a separate blending brush for each colour with my oxides, and a separate set for my distressed inks. But with the inks I don't keep them for colour, I just go by size, whereas my oxide blending tools are all the same size. So this is going to be quite subtle when we do it this way. So if you go back on the videos, there's one where I do about blending tools and how to get strong colours and when to use the brushes to be subtler. And then we have the bristle brushes that are even lighter still. So I'm just using the patterner at the bottom here so you can see what I mean. So we have our negative dots and our positive dots. Latest release. Okay. Cool. I'll just sort those out then. So we have strongest root. That's the Indian summer. Fierce and free. Bloom baby bloom. And you grow girl. And I'm hearing things because I could have swore somebody just walked past the door. And there's no way that is even possible. You know when you have those moments you think, So you can pop in the comments which ones you would like me to use out of those, or I will just choose. One of each pack, okay. if we're going to go one of each pack, let's see. I think I might use the sentiment off that one. Just because I use that one lots and lots in my samples. So it'd be good to kind of give something else a bit of a time to shine. And let's go for that one. So this is going to be another little one. And then I'm going to go for a big one in the middle. So let's get me stamp block. Best bit of the stamp kit, I can honestly say. Because at least it has a grid on, so you can kind of make sure that you get things uprightish. I'm going to pop that one in there. Let's go for another one this side. So with something like this where you're stamping onto a textured background, it's going to be how you colour it that's going to make that flower pop from that background. So I'm going to let those dry for a moment. And let's go to this one here, because it's one of the nice big images that we have in the collection. So I'm going to place my flower head first so that I can work out exactly where I want it to go, and I'm going to kind of curve it around. It's one of the benefits of clear stamps. They do have their uses on occasion. There we go. And I'm going to apply my stamp block. And if you're working with a sentiment that is particularly bendy, sometimes that can be the best way of working with them, is actually applying to your card first and then just picking it up onto your mount like I did just. Okay, now just to get it back in the same place, or close to. Not too bad. Okay, let's go for I was going to go for watercolour, but I think because I did that background, it's going to be a little bit too fragile to do that. So let's see if I can get into my tub. Oh. So I'm going to go coloured pencils. Let's pull out my blues. There's a couple of next here that might just work, so I'll pull those out. Everything else can go back in the tin. It saves a little bit of room on the desk. Okay. So I'm going to go in with my darker colours. Now at this point you need to decide which bits you're going to pull up and which you're going to push back. So I think I'm going to start with the flower, and we're going to go darker towards the centre of the flower. So if you happen to have these pencils, I'm using A032. I'm just going to blend that out. Then in a minute I'm going to come back in with that tealy colour. So it's going to have much stronger. So when we're working with coloured pencils, you've got to remember that a lot of the colour pencils that we use will be wax based. So they'll actually start to form a resist. So if you want to go back over with a stencil for your sentiment, something to bear in mind. So I'm just blending straight over the top with my teal. That is one of the things about doing a Your Votes Count, because the control gets taken out of your hands. So you can't say, oh, I'm not going to do that, I'm too worried I'm going to damage it. You just have to go. And should you ever want to do the kind of full-on Your Votes experience, you're quite welcome to have a go. I will put up the prompts that we had today later, so you can always have a go privately if you want. But we can also do that through rooms if you like, and the rest of us will vote so that you can kind of push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. It's one of those things that you have to be really organised in your craft room though. Because otherwise the thing you want is never going to be easy to get to. I should know. That's why we haven't done one for a while, because it's like craft room's going, please tidy me, please. Okay. It's not very often that you hear the ticking of the clock in here, but you can hear it today. So I did put up a post earlier about National Scrapbooking Day, because I don't know how many scrapbookers we have in the group. So if that's something that people would be interested in, I will be doing hopefully a little bit of scrapbooking tomorrow, all things flowing. While waiting for food delivery to turn up. Okay, so I've done a little bit of teal to that little twiddly bit. It's the technical term, that, the twiddly bit. And I'm just going to pop a little bit in here, just to kind of give that a little bit of form. Now, as I'm going to change to a different flower, I'm just going to change the shades that I use very slightly. So I'm going to swap to the other tealy colour, and I'm going to go to a different blue. Let's go for, let's try this one. So this is A0104. And you can see this is quite a strong bright blue. I'm just fading out around the base so that I can come in with some of the darker teal. I'm also going to do that just up this lip petal here and in the base. So if you'd like me to do some more colouring videos, do let me know, because I know they can be very relaxing, just watching somebody colour. Oh boy, you do have a lot of years to catch up on, but I couldn't possibly comment on that one. I am very, very, very behind. I only have about 2 years worth. I say I've actually, that's it, it's done, I'm not doing any more too. So I'm just doing the same technique to the leaves. So because we're applying that pop of colour through, you're going to start to find that your coloured flowers are going to start to come out from the background. But we can also use other techniques, like using a white outline around the outside. So we can go back in with a gel pencil after. Do that. I own a gel pen. Gel pencil? Honestly, Natty. Concentrate. Okay. So just because that one's going to be pointing up towards the sun, I'll just put a bit of highlight on that one. Okay, so there's our kind of arrangement going on, and I still might cut into this yet, but let's move these out the way. So do we think stamped sentiment or stenciled sentiment? And excuse my phone going a bit mad. Do you know, I even have pinched Ian's phone for this and I haven't once gone to the scan and cut. That's just one of those things, isn't it? You never know. And I thought if I don't put one on, it'll be a case of we need it, and it's a bit awkward when you only got one camera. Stamped. Okay, so let's get back to our first set where we said I was thinking of using that sentiment. So we've got Bloom Baby Bloom, which would go across there if you wanted to, or we could pop it up into the top corner. Now I'm just going to be aware of where that finishes, just so that I'm going to pull that back in there. Is one option, or we could actually build that up into its own element. So if we did that, we could change to this one. Flowers are like friends, they bring colour to your world. Which I think would look quite nice just as a simple strip. So let's grab a little bit of card. And I just want some white card that I can just stamp a sentiment on. Let's go for that one. Go pearlescent. I'm just going to pop my flower off there. So to clean up your stamps after, I just use a bit of bamboo cloth and then just spray it with water. So I'm just using the grid on my stamp block to try and get my baseline level. There we go. And let's go Memento Blue. That way we're sticking to shades of blue then. And I haven't even used my drawing template yet. I was ready with it, but I don't think it's going to find its way onto this card somehow. So I'm just going to stamp that on there. Lift off. So there we go. So the card at the moment I'm using is a, let's get this right, it's slightly smaller than 8 inches, so it's probably the 7-inch adaptable, but it isn't 7 inches. Okay, so we can actually just fold that in half if we want to, or we can actually chop into it and use that half for something else and do a slimline card. But I'm just thinking, because we've done this strip here, it'd be nice to just fold that in half. It is a lovely saying. So I won't necessarily fold it on stream, just because of getting the scoreboard in shot. But I will just quickly trim this sentiment so you can see what it's going to look like. So that's not too bad for time today, is it? Ian's due to go on lunch at 12:15, so I've been aware that I'm not allowed to go over today. So that's going to go roughly about there. So what I will do is chop off the ends, and then I want to actually mount that onto some blue, and that's just going to help bring that sentiment out a little bit. Let's get a little bit of blue. Oh, actually, should we go blue sparkle? Because, you know, you've got to go sparkly sometimes, haven't you? So I'm going to stick that onto the card so that it's a bit easier to chop out the mat. So hopefully you've enjoyed today. As I said, afterwards I will go back through the times and find the person who was closest, and I will drop you a private message, so keep an eye out for that one. Okay, try not to put my fingers in it, it's still a little bit wet. So I'm using a 6-2 3D PVA because that tends to prefer sticking to glitter card to the Tombow Mono. There we go. And I'm going to 3D it a little bit. So I won't stick this to the card just yet in case when I fold it, it makes it go off centre. But I can at least stick the tape to the back so you can see what it's going to look like. We do some challenge posts as well, so if you fancy being pushed out your comfort zone, then take part in one of those. There we go. I said I wanted to stick it, didn't I? Oh well. I was going to stick it because I've got to try and avoid those flowers, so there's only a certain amount of leeway it's got. So I'll trim it and then score it. There we go. So I'm going to go just there, like that. So what you'll probably find is that there will be a photo put up later of this beautifully finished off. And I'll put any steps that I did extra. You're welcome, Linda. Oh, Dulcie, you could. You could. Which bit do you think you would struggle with? And I'll go into it a bit more detail next week. So, while I think of it, I've put a post on the group about being able to nominate or request videos. So the Wednesday 11 AM slot is going to be your questions. So if you have a particular technique that you want to do or cover, or something that you're struggling with. So for instance, it might be that you're making a project and you find that you're wasting lots of material. Is there a better way of making it? Chances are yes, there are. So don't be afraid to... Oh, Dulcie, don't worry about confidence. It's a piece of card. If it goes wrong, you can throw it in the bin and nobody would ever know. Okay? So don't worry about getting it wrong. There's no such thing as wrong, really. And thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Mare. And who knows, Dulcie might give you one-to-one. Get that confidence up there, because I'm sure you're fab. So take care for now, and I will see you, if not tomorrow, I will see you Tuesday.